I tell people it's much easier to paint than it is to draw, because I can push this paint around all day long until it looks the way I want it. There's not a whole lot to know about me. I'm an avid hunter and fisherman, and being a wildlife artist and taxidermist sprung from that. Even in high school, I had taken art classes, and whenever we had some project where we had to draw something or paint something, I seemed to always gravitate to painting ducks or something of that nature. It's just something so unique about waterfowl. I just was naturally drawn to painting that. I really have I've had people want me to do portraits of people. I have absolutely, I know this is terrible, I have absolutely no interest whatsoever in painting a person. I'm interested in painting animals and birds, shore birds. It's just something about it. And I was at one of these bass fishing shows. I had taken some of these drawings with, and a rod builder that had a booth next to me, when he saw them, he said he ever thought of competing for the duck stamp. And I knew all about duck stamps, but I never knew that the duck stamp was selected in a competition. It just kind of snowballed from there. When they used to have the contest in DC every year, that was back when they would have over 1,000 entries. And I went to a couple contests where I was there maybe 15 minutes and I knew who was going to win. I didn't even need to look at the rest of the entries. I turned to my wife and this other guy that was walking around with us and I said, "We can go home. This is the winner." I was asked to judge Maryland's leg of the junior duck stamp competition. That's when they told me up there, they said the federal contest is actually going to be here at Patuxent next fall. And I just saw it as an omen, because when I came in second in '83, I lost to a pair of widgeons. And now the contest is coming back to Maryland. It's going to be held in Maryland for the first time. And I'd already made up my mind I was going to paint a widgeon. And then I find out after we turned them in, it comes up on the internet, my entry is entry number 50. Well, that was the 50th anniversary that I lost in 1983. So I figured the stars were just lined up. And if I didn't win it this time, I wasn't going to win it. For this year's competition, they had blue-winged teal, cinnamon teal, gadwalls, wood ducks, and widgeons. So my strategy was, wood ducks are an extremely popular bird. They're very colorful, almost look artificial, they're so colorful. And I knew that most of the really good artists just wouldn't be able to resist painting a wood duck. I didn't think the teals would do that well, simply because cinnamon teal is a very niche kind of thing. They're only found in parts of the country. Blue-winged teal migrate so early that by the time hunting season rolls around, most of them are down into the very southernmost part of the United States or even into Central South America. Gadwall's a very handsome bird. He's a beautiful bird, but he doesn't have a lot of color. He's very drab. Widgeon is a very popular bird. He's a very handsome bird. He has the color, he has everything. So I figured if I could paint a really good widgeon, when you sit down to paint your entry, make the bird the focal point, keep it simple, and just paint the daylights out of the bird. Don't worry so much about stuff in the background or what have you. Keep it very simple. Only put what you need to have. Less is more. Keep it simple, make the bird the focal point, and at least do a pencil drawing or something up front. And however, whether it takes, you take a reducing glass, magnifying glass, or you scan it in a computer and have somebody shrink it down, but look at it at the size of a stamp before you even start painting it. Because if it won't reduce and translate into a stamp, it's all for naught.
Great, I'm gonna keep rolling. I'm just gonna let you paint, except you don't need to talk anymore. I'm just gonna get a couple of shots of your work so people don't think that you're down here in your basement rambling to yourself.
Yeah, I wouldn't want people to know that I sit here and talk to them.
I feel so honored to be a part of such an incredible program, and with all that it benefits, all the wildlife and the habitat, and it was always a big dream and a goal of mine to be able to win this competition.
The Federal Duck Stamp Program actually is the most successful government program in history. They are closing in on at least $1 billion that are going to go back to the natural resources here in the country. Then what makes it actually extra special is 98 cents out of every dollar goes right back into the environment. It is the only government-funded art program in the country. It's really a good thing that the government is doing to help preserve and save some of the areas that, if we didn't have these programs, would just be lost and not preserved in their natural way. It's in the judge's eye. I mean, even last year when I won, if there would have been 5 other judges there, you know, who knows what would happen. And that's just the reality of it. You know, you just do your best to win, but when you're competing against, you know, 250 and 300 other people, it's pretty tough duty. But I was fortunate enough last year to, I guess, win, so it worked out all right.
And you just put a piece of this under there and then follow the outline. I don't usually put all this detail, just the basic outline of feathers and what have you. But with a pencil, with a sharp pencil, and it'll transfer onto here. And then I'll go around it and rough the background colors in. And then I'll usually start with the head and the bill, and then I would start with the rump and work back this way and get the whole bird roughed in pretty much. I design the reflection. I don't leave anything to chance so that I know exactly how I want it. Transferred this right over top of the painting. Go back over the little indications of water movement and what have you, and just look at it for a couple days and decide whether I'm happy with it or not, and then spray a fine finish over it, and that's it. The rice canes I had in there, the way they're designed, they kind of make your eye move to the left. The little joints in the weeds, they go up, but then they come back down. They almost stair step and take you like right down a set of steps, right back to that bird again. Everything you look at in that entry, you don't realize it's taking your eye right back to the focal point so that you don't wander off of it. You want impact, lasting impression, and simplicity. Each judge has a little monitor, and they have a reducing glass, and you'll see them, they'll pick up and they'll look at that monitor with a reducing glass, and it takes it right down to stamp size so they can see what it would look like as a stamp. Once the judges look at it, you want them to keep coming back and looking at it, and when it's up there with the other entries, you want it to kind of stand out. You're sitting there and you're dreading when they're going to bring yours up, because I told my wife I'm leaving the room when they bring it up, but I managed to stay. Once I got the 5 ends, I had to get up and leave the auditorium. I couldn't sit there. I had to go out and think about it for a minute, because I realized I was going to be in the thick of it. What they wound up with was 9 finalists. Mine was sitting there and nobody was looking at it, nobody was asking anything or saying anything, and either they had decided that there was no way they were going to pick it, or they just couldn't find anything wrong. As it turns out, they didn't find anything wrong. So at that point they come back and they vote again, 1 to 5. Your mind is so fried that you're not sure. So I turned to my wife and I said, I've won, right? And she's sitting there adding it up. She goes, I don't know yet, I don't know yet. You're just so, you can't even think at that point.
The winner of this year's Duck Stamp Contest from Waldorf, Maryland, Robert Beal. It only took 26 years. I was second 26 years ago.
I still can't really explain to people how much it meant for me personally to win it, but the fact that I had come in second so many years ago, you know that there's got to be more than one entry there that is perfectly fine for the stamps. So there are a lot of years where you think, gee, you know, a different set of judges, maybe I would have been the winner, but it can only be one. Boy, I'm so humbled and appreciative of this. I just don't know what to say. And this is the greatest panel of judges. It's one of these things I tell people, to a golfer, if you win the Masters or if you win the US Open, no matter what happens after that, you're always introduced as US Open winner or the Masters champion. And from the rest of my life, I'll always be introduced as a federal duck stamp winner. No matter what I do from this point on, it means that much. You know, you tell people, they ask you what you do for a living or something, you tell them you're an artist, and sometimes they're like, oh yeah, well everybody thinks he's an artist. But when they know you've won the federal duck stamp, they kind of, whoa, you know. Buddy of mine said, well, you've had this out there all these years, now that you've done it, what are you going to do now? And I jokingly said I'm going to track down and actually capture the real Santa Claus. I said, because, you know, if I could do this, I could do that.
The magnitude of this moment is not lost on me. I love the duck stamp programs, the state and the federal. I realize the importance of them.
To go hunting anywhere in the U.S., you have to have that federal duck stamp. It's literally an icon for conservation. It symbolizes conservation because it has an aesthetic value to it. The contests, the collectors, the people who collect it, the artwork, the whole mystique around the whole thing. Hunting really doesn't have much of an effect on them, but hunting does have an effect, the fact that that's where a lot of the money comes from to preserve their habitat and what have you. And you get pinned with this thing, well, you're raising ducks to shoot ducks. Well, they are the glamour species. They're the ones that you can raise money. People will go to Ducks Unlimited, they'll spend money, they'll buy duck stamps, they'll do all this good stuff. But what you don't see are the non-glamorous species. They don't have a champion. They don't have a stamp. They don't have a salamander stamp or a crayfish stamp or frogs, turtles, all sorts of things that nobody would go out of their way, except a few really zealot people would go out of their way to do anything for them. But they fall under this umbrella. When somebody comes in with duck stamp money or Ducks Unlimited money and buys up thousands of acres of a wetland, and they preserve it and they look after it and they restore it, and all of a sudden all those little creatures, they're safe now. They can go about their business. They don't have to worry about losing their habitat because of the ducks. It's just a phenomenon. These birds fly thousands of miles and come back to the same spot every year, and then they disappear, and I don't know how much climate change will affect them, but I don't really think it will, because they kind of move around the world looking for a warm climate. That's the whole point of migrating. I think they're here to stay, and they'll probably be here along with roaches after we're gone. So.